Hello and welcome to the latest TriPOD podcast with me, Kevin and Matthew, just here to give you a quick introduction on a podcast that we recorded through video.
Yeah. Today's guest is Simon Hinton, whose company's called Responsive TV, and he is, let's be careful and say, definitely a 20-year plus veteran of making infomercial-style television adverts and similar videos for online. We've been working together now for about 6 months on some pretty cool stuff. So we'll talk about that in the interview, and we'll hear some stories from Simon's past, plugging quite a variety of products, infomercial products, or sometimes a little bit different. Anyway, we'll cover some of the highlights of Simon's career in what I thought was a very entertaining interview, quite frankly, so hope you enjoy. So let's start at the beginning. Let's start about, A, I do think it's interesting as to how you describe to people down the pub what you do, and then B, how you got into doing it in the first place.
Well, I normally start, when I am talking to people about it, I normally start off by saying that I make TV commercials. Now, that is a very, very grand way of describing teleshopping, I think, really. People automatically think about, perhaps it's like, an advert for a car or, Coca-Cola or something like that. But then I do sort of normally say that, it is teleshopping. Teleshopping is what I do. And it's the, those late night adverts selling you a product that you never knew that you needed. Quite often in long form as well, so it's the sort of half-hour ones, or it's the one that you're watching film for example, and you're watching a film, you fall asleep, of course, you wake up on the sofa at 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's one of my adverts selling you again something that you never knew you needed, and ideally you'd be literally grabbing your phone and grabbing your credit card. So that's pretty much how I would describe it. But teleshopping is something that's very unique. And you can spot teleshopping a mile off, really.
Yeah. Well, if it was me who was in the pub with you and I just met you for the first time and I didn't do what I do, I would probably say to you, I would imagine, oh, okay, so people actually watch those, do they? And also, I thought they were all American. Is that generally what people say?
It is, yeah, absolutely. Much of the films are they are originally from America, so I do spend quite a lot of my time sort of anglicising US films and making them suitable for broadcast. Obviously bringing Clearcast into play, which is something we can talk about if you want to. That's always an interesting subject. But do people still watch them? I mean, the answer to that is absolutely they do. In fact, I saw one of your podcasts not so long ago. You were talking about, is linear TV dead? And you came to the conclusion that it absolutely isn't dead. Are there many millions of people watching it as there were, 25 years ago? No, but are people still watching it? They absolutely are watching it. So, we're told all the time that linear TV is dead and everybody's only watching YouTube or streaming services, that sort of thing. My experience is that's just simply not true.
But by the same token, these campaigns don't rely on someone having fallen asleep in front of film 4, waking up at 2 in the morning and then reaching for their credit card. So without getting too into, sort of the weeds of it, like, why do these things work? Like, who is watching them and why do they work? Because again, you hear the time of day that they're on, the long form, the Americanness of them, even when they're being anglicised a bit, I think in this country we have a general aversion. Oh, that's a bit American, It's probably lessened in my lifetime, but it definitely has been there. So just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I mean, there's no doubt about it that the people who are watching teleshopping are older people. The teenagers are not watching it. The teenagers are not my audience. I'm not writing films for young people. I am writing them for, older people. So that in terms of them being American, yes, they are. When they come to me, there are all sorts of outrageous claims on these things that just simply will not pass muster, will not get past Clearcast in any way, shape or form. I can spot them a mile off. They just come straight out. The UK is one of the, well, if not the most difficult country in the entire world for getting an advert on the TV in terms of the claims. So, so not only, I mean, obviously I put a British voiceover on it, so that obviously calms it down a little bit. All those outrageous claims are taken out as well. So, we do work pretty hard to make these things, more suitable for a UK audience. But there is no doubt about it, that they still have that Americanness about it. But, that doesn't put people off, frankly. Some of the biggest selling products, that have been in teleshopping have got American films with them. For example, one of the enormous products that started in teleshopping was the NutriBullet. Now, that became like a worldwide smash. And it was actually on the shelf in John Lewis. That was an American film, but it did have a British presenter in it. So that did, again, sort of calm it down ever so slightly and make it a bit more suitable for a UK audience. But
on that particular one, sorry, because I never had a NutriBullet. Let me just ask.
I've got one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great ornament in the kitchen.
I was going to say, what's the difference, genuinely, what's the difference between that and just a regular food mixer, processor, whatever? What was it about that particular product or campaign? Because all of us, because I didn't have one, but obviously Kev did, and I know loads of people that got them, and there was definitely a moment in time, a bit like air fryers a few years ago, all of a sudden everyone had an air fryer. Before that was a NutriBullet. So what was it? Was it the product? Was it the presentation? What did it do different?
For me,
yeah,
with that one, I don't think there was anything in particular for me. I think I was right down the line, a late comer to the NutriBullet. So I think it was just a deal on Amazon. But then obviously Amazon still used a lot of the older teleshopping stuff on the page, the product page.
But was it like
it's a cool name for it.
Yeah, it is a good name. Was the campaign, because to me the thing that people tended to use it for the most was smoothies, wasn't it? Like that was the whole thing. It was like healthy smoothies and stuff like that. So was it more like it's a smoothie maker? Was it sold on the health aspect rather than the technical aspect?
Yeah, the whole idea of it was the health aspect. So I think one of the main selling points was it was the action of the blades and the design of the blades that somehow, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of it didn't, it was a more healthy blend. It kept the pulp more healthy, and the fibre, the fibres were still intact. It didn't just literally blitzed everything to a billion pieces. It was a much healthier way of doing it. Plus, it came with all the bits. It came with like a cup. So you could literally pour it in and take it with you down the gym, so it's ready. As soon as you've finished your workout and that sort of thing. So it was certainly sold on a more of a healthy aspect. But and then that is absolutely perfect, because it had some features on it that were different to other blenders. I mean, blenders are, you go to your local Asda, there's hundreds of them, and they're starting at $9.99 probably. But this one was different. It had something about it, and of course, it had the health message, which is always a very effective message in teleshopping.
So just to extrapolate from there, then, if you've got a food mixer here, a processor there, and a NutriBullet next to it, and basically what we're saying is the strength of the campaign was it wasn't sold as a processor, it was sold as if you want healthy smoothies in your life and you want ease and convenience, this is the product. So is it too broad a statement to say that the best teleshopping products and campaigns are one note from that perspective? It's like, you buy this to fix this problem, which, as you said before, you maybe didn't know you have, as opposed to multifunction tools that could do a million things.
You're always looking to solve a problem. That is one of the core messages from a teleshopping ad. Many of them, not so much these days, but many of them would start, with, like, for example, you'd see a lady if you're selling a mop, for example, you see a lady in the kitchen, and she'd have this old string mop, and she'd be, just moving water around, and it would be in black and white.
And she'd be like that.
Exactly, you get the big shopping telly cross through it. Don't do it like this. Introducing the new Super Wizzy mop, and then we go back to colour, and and all is well in the world. So that is certainly a very strong. Well, we say we don't do that quite so much these days. We tend to spend the time sort of singing the praises of the product rather than sort of mocking old products and other people's products. We don't do that so much these days. But the sort of creating that desire, it saves you time, it saves you effort, it saves you money, or it's healthier, it's, the before and after, all these things are really important, really in any video presentation, but certainly in terms of teleshopping, we need to create that, we need to show exactly what it does and why it is different from other things that are in the same category quite often.
On the before and after point, my personal experience of seeing the American produced ads over the years, which both in America and here on TV, they always feel very produced, very kind of unbelievable to me. And part of that is obviously I understand that it is easy to get certain claims through there, but I would more instinctively trust UK created before and afters than I would American before and afters. So like, is that when you talk about anglicised and American stuff, like just talk a little bit more, and I know that's one part of it, but just talk a little bit about that process, and also attached to that, how much pushback do you get from the American clients who are very wedded to this thing that's already worked for them and sold them lots of product? Like what's that tightrope like to walk?
Okay, well, obviously, if you're producing a film, you want to show the product in its very best light. Now, the first thing that I do is I get to know that product. I spend time with it, and I spend quite often, a few days in my kitchen playing around with it, finding out what it can do, what it can't do, working out what the demonstrations are going to be. For example, if I've got like a set of pans or something like that, sort of ceramic pans have been the latest thing just recently. You're always looking for a wow demonstration, but it has to be, wedded in reality. I mean, it'd be all too easy just to make something up and Photoshop it or something like that. But your audiences these days have become a bit more discerning, and they will see straight through that. They're not as gullible. That's probably the wrong word, but they will see straight through something if you've made it up. They'll spot it a mile off. So it has to be wedded in reality. Plus, of course, in this day and age, if they get the product home and they try what it is that you've shown them and it doesn't work, well, guess what? You're getting the product back, which is absolutely the last thing that anybody wants. So it has to be wedded in some sort of reality. I think the Americans are learning that, frankly, that a quality film. The Americans do actually quite like British ads, and they like British presenters because, I don't know, they trust us. They they like what we've got to say. Things are changing as far as that goes. Of course, you still come across the odd absolutely outrageous one, but there has to be some sort of reality, and it's the time and the effort that you put into it that will shine through. I think we mentioned earlier about you go to something like the Ideal Home exhibition, and you've got the guys there who are doing the demonstrations. They're there every year. You've got the guys who are doing the super chamois, the chamois cloths. You've got the guys there with the cheese graters. You've got all these things that you see year in, year out, and but they are expert.
Are you telling me there is a better cheese grater on the market and I don't have access to it yet? I can have a better grater than I've got now.
Yes, there is, and you need to get. In fact, Matthew, the Ideal Home exhibition is on now. You can get yourself down there and revolutionise your life with a super duper cheese grater. But the thing about it is that they're doing this in front of you, so there isn't anywhere to hide. But what they've got is they've got the experience. They know the product inside out. They've done it a million times. They've got the patter down. They know what works. They know what doesn't work. They know the trigger points. It's exactly the same in teleshopping films. You've got to spend the time with the product, learn about it, and the film will only ever benefit from it. So, the realer it looks, the better it is, frankly, and I think everybody understands that.
To me, there's always a big gap between, let's say, the difference between the American approach and the British approach is the level of enthusiasm. Whereas I think the English approach still has that enthusiasm, but it's, as you said before, it's at a less of a high pitch. It's at a calmer level. Whereas because if you watch The Apprentice and they do this task now every year where they go live on the shopping channel, and the biggest pitfall they always seem to fall into is they're just shouting and yelling and just, repetition is obviously a huge part of these presentations, but they kind of mistake that for, well, if I just keep yelling the same thing, I've kind of got the sales point across, whereas I think the best English presenters that I've seen, including obviously people that we've worked with together, are hitting the same points, sales points over and over from slightly different angles, but they're doing it in such a smooth, kind of relaxed, hey, I just know what I'm talking about kind of way that as you're viewing it, you don't necessarily pick up on the fact that you're being given the same message over and over again.
No, quite right. I mean, often, you want to hear from somebody who is an expert. I mean, one of the most successful films I ever made was a thing called an exact saw, which was a bit like an angle grinder, but you could set the depth on it. So, for example, you could do doing laminate flooring really easily. You didn't have to go out and buy a chop saw or anything like that. Really well engineered, which is unusual for teleshopping, but a real quality, well engineered product. And the guy that we had on the film was actually the inventor. Now he'd never been on TV before. He'd never had cameras pointed at him. He'd never been in a studio or anything like this. So, he was a bit nervous. He was a bit, not wooden, but, he was a bit cautious. But, boy, he knew his product. And he knew how to use it. And the demonstrations were superb. And he knew his stuff. And he just spoke about, why he invented the product, how he invented the product. And it just gave the whole thing just total authenticity. And he didn't need to shout about it, frankly. So if you can find people who are the inventors of a product, I mean, I'm involved in a product now called iBrake, which is it's an under eye product that removes bags and wrinkles and that sort of thing from under your eyes. And I'm working with the inventor. Her name's Ginny. She knows her stuff. She just happens to be brilliant in front of camera as well. So it's an absolute dream. But, it's her product. She knows the ins and outs of it. She knows how it works. She can talk to the women that, that she invented it for. It's an absolute dream for me, that sort of scenario.
Yeah, I suppose Dyson built their brand from that perspective. I know it was less detail, but him being front and center and kind of, I'm the inventor of this product and this is what's different about it. That was a huge part of their story, isn't it?
And the guy from G-Tech as well, Nick Pope. There's another one. He, again, he just speaks with authority. So, you're gonna believe him.
Did you just say Nick Pope?
I did, yeah.
But it's a different Nick Pope, is it?
Is his name not Nick Pope? I thought his name was Nick Pope.
Well, no, it might be. I'm just saying our goalkeeper's Nick Pope. I'm just checking it's not the same guy.
Yeah, sorry, yes. I was forgetting that for a moment, yeah. So that's G-Tech, the sponsors of Brentford, by the way.
Yes. Flying high in the Premier League, above Newcastle. Yeah. It's on the record there. Very good.
What's the nightmare version of a product and a brand? And have you ever developed a presentation for a brand that you weren't convinced by?
Or do you turn things down?
I've never turned anything down, no. I mean, I've had, in terms of something that I think is going to work, I've never turned it down, but I do get approached from time to time with people with a product that just literally would not be suitable for shopping TV. So, for example, in fact, a product that we worked on recently was the Philips One-Up mop, which is a brilliant product. It's really demonstrable. It works beautifully. It's really decent quality as well, and it passes the Does Every Home Need It test, which is the number one test that we do in teleshopping. But it's already in all the retailers. So it's in Argos, it's in John Lewis, you name it, it's out there. So So say, for example, then that we were to make an advert and put it on the TV and, it would generate sales, but, when people are going to look for it on the internet, they're just going to buy it directly from Argos or they're going to get it directly from Amazon. You're never going to know how effective that commercial was and what it's doing. One of the things that teleshopping can do is, give you reasonably accurate data on how it's working. So, for example, every different channel that we put an advert on, we put a different phone number on it. So exactly which channel has generated that inquiry. So, that wouldn't be possible with a product that's already out there. So that would not be suitable. Brilliant as it is, and as much as I'd love to make a film on it, I think it would do really well, but it just wouldn't be suitable. So it does happen, that it has to pass, a teleshopping product has to pass a number of sort of fairly stiff criteria. But if you do pass it and you've got a decent film, honestly, let's talk about NutriBullets. I can tell you about the X5 mop, in actual fact, which is a product that I did when I was at Thane. That was a monster. It was one of the first link ups that we ever did with a retailer. So we actually tagged a retailer called Robert Dias in the film. So it was sort of call the number on the screen, go online, or go to your local Robert Dias. Well, we put this film out there. Within 2 weeks, the X5 mop alone was 10% of Robert Dias's turnover.
Wow.
And they just could not get enough of these things. I think we sold about 2 million of them in the end at $99.99 each. Theo Pafitis, who owns Robert Dias, was over the moon with us and invited us to one of their conferences, and sort of was saying lovely things about us. I mean, no, we've paid him many millions of pounds, so of course he did. But but so as I say, not every product is suitable for teleshopping. But if you have got one that is, and you do it properly, honestly, the sky's the limit. It really is.
Well, this is interesting to kind of expand on a bit, I think, because obviously we generally operate in the 30-second TV advert world, where the brief is similar. It's obviously explain the product, give a reason for why the person should be looking at it, paying attention to it, but obviously it is a short, sharp message that is either designed to build a bit of brand recognition or potentially a direct response, but it's by its nature, it's limited. So straight away, we have the constraints. We don't have the luxury of a 2 or 3 minute or even longer form to really go to town and explain the benefits. But as you were talking there, it reminded me of when we first got Sky Digital in the mid-90s, and all of a sudden had all these shopping channels and stuff that, are still quite American in my mind, but obviously they had UK versions now. And generally, I suppose, I was skeptical of them because I thought if that product was really good, I could go into John Lewis or whatever and buy it. The fact that I have to buy it here puts a bit of a question mark over it. So, but actually, in the broader picture of what we were talking about, obviously we have conversations all the time with people who are used to digital marketing and being able to track the path to purchase, and that's one of the barriers to their move into traditional TV as well. How do I know that my campaign is effective to the same level that I know my online is? Whereas actually what we're saying here is, if the product is right, arguably this is one of the purest forms of TV advertising that absolutely you can track in that way because of what you've mentioned, the different tags you can put on and different phone numbers and routes like that. So actually, although it's to some degree a bit of an old-fashioned form, it might be the one that's kind of the closest equivalent to what people are trying to do with online marketing, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. In this day and age, teleshopping does go sort of hand in glove with online. If the two are not mutually exclusive. You can run a teleshopping ad or teleshopping campaign and do an online campaign at the same time. I mean, that is the way that it's done these days. Absolutely, yeah. And you want to maximise your sales in every single way, and that is definitely a way to do it. And many people these days, you would make the product available in Amazon. I mean, again, it does make the tracking a little bit more difficult, but if you've got a singular product, then it can still be done. I think there was a famous there's a famous quotation, isn't there, about marketing budgets? Isn't it something along the lines of, I know where I spend half of my marketing budget and the rest of it I just waste, something like that. You got no idea whether it's effective or not. Whereas, teleshopping is very, the numbers really, really matter. And, if it's not working, we are very flexible. If it's not working, you change it immediately, because otherwise you're just throwing good money after bad. You're really, really strict about that. So. And that definitely helps with making an efficient campaign.
So on that point then, what's a good point of entry for someone who's thinking about launching a teleshopping campaign? Is it just as effective if they're going to market with a new product and launching, or do they need to have a strong track record of other sales to kind of put the type of budget that's required to move the needle? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
You know, let's be honest about it. Teleshopping is not cheap. You know, it does cost money, but I would, you know, I say I'm more for the production side of things, to be perfectly honest with you. So I'm not a real expert in these matters, but if I could get hold of a brand new product that nobody's ever seen before, you know, and launch it on teleshopping, that would be my absolute dream. It really would. That I think would make the most effective, the most effective way to do it. You know, let's not say that digital marketing doesn't work, because clearly it does. But from my point of view, I would love to get a brand new product, new to market. You know, because you know, let's go back to steam mops. I mean, when we were doing the steam mop, it was the only one on the market. You go again. I always use the analogy. You go down to Asda now. There's 10 of them down there, and you can buy them for 20 quid. So as soon as somebody notices that there's a bit of success there, you know, you've only got a certain amount of time that you've got the market to yourself, really. Especially if it's really successful.
Yeah.
Like you know, there are all sorts of NutriBullet copies out there now, aren't there? You know, I mean, Argos probably do their own one, or John Lewis. They all, you know. So you'll only have the space to yourself for a certain amount of time. So you've got to make hay while the sun shines.
Absolutely. So you personally have done presenting on like QVC channels and things like that, yeah? So you've done like the long form, 20, 30 minute kind of slots where you're talking about a product?
Yeah, well, more about sort of 10. They normally have you on between sort of 8 and 10 minutes. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's basically as long as you get.
So in your dream scenario where you're launching a new product via teleshopping, are you going into that environment and giving a truly long form demonstration explanation, then launching a campaign of 3-minute ads, or are you does it depend on the product? Like, just talk to me a little bit about what you think is the optimum way to do it.
Well, I would want to launch it on TV first of all, and then start approaching QVC and taking it live. You know, once QVC can see that there is a track record, that there is a demand for the product, that it works, then they might start getting interested. But again, there are many products that haven't relied on QVC. Obviously, QVC is live, and obviously we're doing pre-recorded stuff. So I mean, again, it lives in the same space, but QVC do branded stuff, don't they? They do, TVs and I mean, one of their biggest, obviously, selling categories is women's clothing and that sort of thing, which clearly isn't suitable for teleshopping because it's just not, it doesn't fit any of the criteria. So you don't have to use QVC. It really totally depends on the product, but I'm working with a product at the moment called the Motion Sizer, which is, it's basically a box that you put your feet on. It's got two sort of vibrating plates and sort of vibrates your feet, and it warms up and makes your feet nice and warm. It keeps the circulation going, keeps your joints moving, keeps your hips moving, that sort of thing. Brilliant product, looks fantastic on the TV. It's we've got it onto QVC. Did really well because it's exactly their sort of product. It's nice sort of again, it's demonstrable. You can see it happening. You can talk to the model while it's happening about what they're feeling is happening and that sort of thing. So the two can cross over to great effect, but it's not absolutely necessary.
Interesting. So, and does that mean, therefore, in most cases, it's one or the other, depending on what the product is and what the fit is with the audience? You might go, for some things, just go straight to QVC because it's, for example, someone from America comes and says, right, we're selling a ton of these products every day. We want it in the UK. So in that particular instance, you might then go to QVC and say, let's do a test slot and just see what.
Totally. I mean, we don't get very much stuff on QVC. We're not in and out there all the time.
I'm saying QVC. I know there's other channels. I'm just using that.
Yeah, there are. Yeah. We don't. we don't do too much stuff on the live channels. You know, if something is absolutely correct, then we will approach them. We do have a route in. You know, we do have people that we know in the buying department there, so we can, you know, we have the right connections. But not everything goes via QVC. You know, a lot of it is just standalone teleshopping media.
Yeah.
We've already touched on this one as well, Simon. Just in terms of the actual presenter themselves
Mm.
and what they need to do, like what makes a great presenter.
Well, I mean, I always really admire people that can do, you know, that can be a presenter, and I admire them because, first of all, they've got the actual cojones to stand up there and do it. You know, particularly in a live environment where, you know, they could be, you know, 1 million people watching. You know, that takes you know, that takes a you know, as I say, cojones to do that. But then it's not. People think that teleshopping or live TV is just stand there and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Nothing could be further from the truth. Again, as we've been speaking about, you're looking for a polished presentation. You're looking for somebody who knows the product inside out. The demonstration is flawless and won't go wrong, ideally. And you know, just somebody who knows that product inside out and can create the desire for the product. Again, you know, do a really good before and after. You know, just really understands how to sell things, and that is a skill. It can be learned, but I think that you know, it is something to be admired, and especially you know, in a studio environment where you've got 5 cameras on you, to do something 50 times without, you know, shouting at the director or the producer is a real skill. It's a real skill, but I do admire them.
Well, obviously, recently when we worked on on the Philips project with you, David was the presenter, and obviously he does a lot of live stuff as well as filmed. And the thing that sort of struck me as we were watching the clip of him doing it live before we filmed with him, was how, to me, I thought the key was he just kept the conversation going with the presenter the whole time whilst he was demoing the product. So although you were watching him mop the floor, you were not really paying that much attention to it, other than the fact that it was clearly working. Because he was just continually keeping the conversation going and dropping in sales points. And, you know, obviously I know that when it came for us doing the hour shoot, effectively what we're doing was taking that information from a 10-15 minute slot and condense it down to 3-4 minutes. So that was scripted. But what he was doing live on the channels presumably is not scripted. It is learned to some degree, by which I mean he's probably got the running order in his head and he knows the points, but it's still like spontaneous. Ultimately, is that basically the best way to do it?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And also, in a live environment, you know, he will have a presenter there with him who will be guiding him and asking pertinent questions. And again, these presenters have seen all these products before. They know exactly what they're doing. On QVC, they've all been there for many years. They know exactly what they're doing. They've also got people, you know, they've got the gallery in their ear as well. And again, they are watching that if you say something and all of a sudden there's a spike in phone calls, they'll be saying to the presenter down their ear, say more of that, you know. So there is that constant, well, not dialogue, because obviously it's one way, but they are getting fed information all the time from the gallery, who are watching what's happening on the phones and on the web like a hawk.
Is the presenter getting that in their earpiece, or is it just as in our case, was David getting that information, or was it the guy he was speaking to?
It can really experienced presenters will get everything. So they'll be hearing it all, and they will also be you know, they'll also be picking up on what the director in the gallery is saying, what the producers are saying. If you're fairly new to it, then they will calm that down a bit, and you might just get the director just talking directly to you, just with a few encouraging words, or just with a brief, you know, sort of, can you do that again, or, you know, we're going to move on to something else. But really experienced presenters, yes, they will be hearing that as well, and they'll be sort of understanding what to do next.
Yeah, that's quite the skill. Fair play to them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, with David, you could tell, as you said before, Simon, he knew that product inside and out.
Yeah.
So using it to him, it was like he didn't even need to look at what he was doing. It was just an extension of himself almost.
exactly.
So that he could just concentrate on what he
and
does.
that really shows, in the finished film. It really shows, and it makes everybody's life so much easier as well when the presenter knows exactly what they're doing, how the product works, and what to do. It just makes everybody's life so much easier, and it really affects sales in a positive way as well.
Yeah. Well, I've mentioned QVC a lot. To switch to a different 3-letter acronym, you spent a long time working for JML.
I did. Yes.
Obviously, to me, if I hear JML, the first thing I think of is a little screen playing a little video at the end of an aisle in Wilkinson, RIP. So, as a line has been drawn there, I don't know, is JML still... Is that company, what's different about it? I just talked about that. Like, to me, when Wilkinson went, it was almost like that was an end of an era. And I'm leading this into a talk about the future and, online selling, that kind of thing. But let's talk a little bit about your time at JML and where you think they are positioned in the current marketplace.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, JML have faced, a few large things happening in terms of you two are obviously far too young to remember it, but there was a company called Woolworths once in a while, and they were.
I spent many hours in Woolworths as a child. Don't worry.
Yeah, Steve in the pick and mix probably.
No, just licking them and putting them back.
They sadly went as well. But the principles of what JML do are still going, and you still see them on the high street. My time at JML I was there for 16 years, and right back in the very early days. One of my dear friends, a school friend of mine called Ken, he was the sales manager at the time. And I was around his house one day, and he showed me these couple of amazing products that he had. One of them was called a universal spanner, which is basically like a spanner, and it's on like a hinge. So what this meant is that it didn't matter what size the nut was; you just put it over, and it worked. I just blew my mind, absolutely blew my mind. Yeah. And then there was another product called a No Wet Wonder Foam, which was. It was basically like a carpet cleaner. It came with like a bottle of foam stuff, and then it had like this unit with these 2 foam rollers in it, which you'd put on a stick, and you sort of clean your carpet with it. And again, the before and afters on that, all sorts of demonstrations of putting crayon and ink and all this sort of thing onto the carpet, and of course it took it up perfectly. I was mesmerised by this. It just spoke to me. Well, long story short, I begged Ken for a job, which I nearly said very stupidly agreed to, but and the rest is history, really. So, I used to go around all the stores and sort of filling up the gondola ends with product and making sure that the video, and it was, again, you're too young to remember, it was a video. I think what a video cassette back in those days. Oh yes, and making sure that was working. And it was really, 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 really successful, and the JML became an absolute behemoth, really, of these sorts of products, and we're in every sort of sizable retailer in the UK. And I moved into the production side, sort of making their films and sort of taking existing films from the US and again making them suitable for the UK, and that's really sort of where I cut my teeth and learned about this stuff.
Does that mean that JML trained you to do what you do now, or did you already have background in that? Like how did you?
No, basically yes. JML taught me everything that I know. Really, I owe a great debt of gratitude to a lady called Jess Levy, who was the production manager there when I was a producer. She taught me all sorts of things. Also owe a great gratitude to the gentleman who owned the company, Mr. John Mills, sadly no longer with us, died about a year ago, very sadly. I owe them a great debt of gratitude, and I learned everything that I know today there. Definitely, the principles of selling product on TV are the same now as they were all those years ago, and indeed at the very start of teleshopping. It's the same principle. We just have a slightly different method of delivery these days, but it's exactly the same.
Well, that perfectly tees up what I want to talk about next, because couple of things. Obviously, everything we've talked about there, about the stuff at the end of the aisle and all that. I know JML didn't invent this part, but the red as seen on TV, white letter and sign, that is universally accepted. Like that, whenever I think JML, that's what I think of.
Yeah.
But really what I'm thinking of there is the as seen on TV is meant to be a trust mark, right? It's like, hey, this is good enough that we spent money to put it on TV and demonstrate it, therefore it's worth your time. So we're now living in a world where obviously online is arguably king in terms of eyeballs, or certainly that's the narrative. And certainly, social selling, TikTok shop, influencers, all that kind of thing. But there's a huge accepted credibility gap. A lot of these influencers in particular are working all the time to prove that what they are saying is actually real and it's not just the latest thing that they're being paid to post. So let's talk about the way things have changed and are continuing to change. Like, where does, you've said everything that you were taught back then still informs what you do now. So that would imply that fundamentally human beings still respond to the same sales approach. But as you've just said, it comes from a totally different avenue. It comes from less known or trustworthy sources. So what do you feel about the way that marketplace is at the minute? Where do you think it might go? And what do you think of like things like TikTok Shop and stuff like that, which appear to be a kind of a newer version of, QVC type selling here?
Well, I mean, I think, you used an interesting word there, that is credibility. I know that quite a lot of the time, people do slightly look down their nose at teleshopping, people who don't understand it and who perhaps have never had a hit product on teleshopping. But I think that people do understand that, everything that they're seeing is true and is real, and it has to have been cleared for broadcast. It's not just an American film that somebody has just literally made anything up. So there is that level of, if it's seen on TV, it does give it that level of credibility. Now, I am not convinced that, that TikTok Shop and all this stuff has that level of credibility yet. I am not denying that it is a huge, and that obviously it sells large amounts of product, but this is why teleshopping continues and will probably always continue in one form or another, because it has that credibility. And other stuff as well, really. Other really interesting stuff about it, I think. Yeah, really informed stuff.
Do you need the gallery in it? Yeah.
Yeah, ideally, yeah. I see no reason. People, your question wasn't leading, but I think your question was, is teleshopping going to get stamped out by TikTok Shop and similar routes to market? The answer to that is I don't think so. I don't think it will. No. We are looking at a huge area for growth for us at the moment. We haven't even really started even exploiting it yet, but are the fast channels.
Yeah.
And I think you might have spoken about them on one of your previous podcasts. Now, these are the channels that you get free on your Samsung TV or your LG TV. They're all in the the sort of app section of your smart TV, and on that you get the Jamie Oliver channel, which I do watch quite a lot. You get the Dog the Bounty Hunter channel. You get the Anti-Roadshow channel, and these channels are exploding in popularity. Again, it's not the 21-year-olds doing it; it's the old fogies like myself, who we find a subject that we're interested in, or like the MasterChef channel, for example. And and people are watching it, and as I say, these things are exploding in popularity. And if you watch them, they quite often have, because obviously the original program was made. If it's a 30-minute slot, most of the time these programs are made to say 25, 26 minutes. So they do have 4 minutes to fill, and they'll have a break, and they'll just literally have a countdown clock on there saying we'll be back in 2 minutes. Well, if it's the MasterChef channel and 2 minutes, I could seriously use that. I've got 20 things that I could put in that and sell. So the opportunities for teleshopping are still out there, and we are flexible. We can sort of use our films and our techniques on almost any platform, really. That one included. So, is TikTok Shop going to take over the world? Possibly, but teleshopping will still survive one way or another and be very successful. I was very fortunate 15 years ago to go to a conference in fabulous Las Vegas, the ERA teleshopping conference, and there they were saying, TV's dead. It's all going to be on mobile. It's all going online. Just forget about TV. Get out of it. Get out of it. Get out of it. And here we are, all these years later, and TV still works. So, there will always be a place in every Brit's heart, I think, for linear TV.
Yeah.
And for watching Coronation Street at 7:30 on a Wednesday. I don't think that will ever go away.
And just to sort of close the loop a little bit on something we talked about earlier, just based on what you just said, things like fast channels. It's obviously getting back to what I was talking about before about the reticence some digital marketers have to move budget across the TV. It's always about attribution, measurement, and all that kind of thing. And of course, you can, with everything, fast channels included, get down to fairly granular level, analysis. But because of the change in landscape, because it's not just put a campaign on ITV and let it run, because there's all these things to look at, obviously it's a big undertaking, a lot of broadcasters will only get involved with the budgets are right, blah, 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 that kind of thing. It's just complicated. Whereas the magic bullet, dare I say, with your niche is always, no matter what the platform, because it's got that very specific call to action and route to a sale, you can always attribute it. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to lean on the other stuff,
Exactly. Yeah. We will always know, in some cases very accurately, and in some cases reasonably accurately, where every penny has gone, and how every penny is performing.
Which to marketing managers is the holy grail, isn't it? If they can get
absolutely
that.
It is. Yeah. No, that's right. It's almost unique, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm almost out of questions. Was there anything else we wanted to talk about before we wrapped up?
I think a nice last one would just be, if you were speaking to brands that were considering teleshopping, what would your advice be?
Right. So my advice would be, if we were talking to a brand, as we spoke about earlier, I would really love a product that is unique, that nobody else has got, that passes the teleshopping test of does every home need one. So it could be a kitchen product, it could be a leisure product, it could be there's all sorts of categories where every home needs one. If you're fortunate enough to have that product, then we're already pretty much onto a winner. Ideally, it would be a product that would cost more than $29.99. That's the magic number, really. Anything, $99.99 would be ideal. Plus, something that us teleshopping marketers absolutely love, of course, is an upsell. Not only do we excel at creating demand for a product, making somebody really want to get their hands on that product and say, this is going to change my life. Not only are we experts at that, but we are also experts at the upsell. For example, the X5 mop, that we had a full range of steam scents that you would put into the tank and it would make your house smell nice. We were selling bottles of descaler. We had extra cloths, of course. We had like a shoulder holster for it when you use it in manual mode. All these different add-ons that we had, that really, really, really made the difference. For example, the X5 mop in its base in its base level was $99.99. Our average basket value was 140 quid because we had all these extra bits. We are masters of that. So if your product has got extra add-ons as well, that we can either bundle them up and make the we're going to add in a bonus this, a bonus that, whatever, just to make the value unbelievable. People are going to, I must have one. I have seen it myself. Just very briefly, going back to the Ideal Home exhibition, I know I talk about that quite a lot, but I was there on Sunday, so it's still fresh in my mind. But
just as a visitor or as an exhibitor?
Sorry?
Just visiting or exhibiting?
Oh, just visiting on this occasion, yeah. Many years ago, John Mills, he had a stand. We had many stands at the Ideal Home exhibition, but he had this one particular one which he was selling a knife. And it was like a long knife like this with a nice curved handle on it, like a do-all knife. And he flew this bloke from America over to demonstrate it. Again, as we've been talking about, this guy was brilliant. He could do amazing things with a knife. He would fillet a fish, and then he'd fillet the fillet, and fillet the fillet, fillet the fillet, and tomatoes like he would cut them so thin, your in-laws, it would feed your in-laws for a week, and so he'd say, so today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna give you this knife, and then what's that? All right, I'll put another knife in. And then, what's that, a set of steak knives? Okay, in go the steak knives. Then there was this thing that you put it in the end of a cucumber, and you twirled it round, and it made like a nice thing out of your cucumber. There was an orange juicer, which you put into your orange, and you squeezed, you got fresh orange juice came out. All this stuff in, all this stuff. What's that? Another set of steak knives? I can't believe it. And they put it in this bag, and then they say, right, who, £20 for all this? The people couldn't get to the front quick enough. They were I've never seen anything like it, and that is what we do. We create the value as well. You get to what they're putting that in as well. That's unbelievable. What was the question, Kev? I've forgotten.
I've got a random question for you off the back of what you just said. Would Del Boy have been a good teleshopping salesperson?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. It's not just gift of the gab. It's there's more to it than that, and teleshoppers know exactly what they're doing, and again, it does come from that market stall sort of mentality, it really does. Again, knowing your product, offering excellent value, knowing the demonstration, having done it a million times, knowing how to interact with the audience, entertain the audience. I mean, again, if I'm making a 30-minute film, it's got to be entertaining. I mean, I'm not so conceited as to think that somebody would watch it the whole way through, except possibly my mum. But so it's got to be entertaining as well. So there's all these things that you've got to do. So yes, I think Del Boy would be a good, would make an excellent teleshopper actually.
He just needed quality product.
Yeah.
In the first place.
And he needed a plonker to stand next to him to demonstrate it. Yeah.
Well, he wouldn't have needed the lookout, would he? If he had the quality
That's true.
Yeah, I think that's all the questions, Simon. That's been
it's been a great chat. As I
you haven't asked me about have any of my shoots ever gone wrong? That I can tell you about that if you want.
Well, please do. Absolutely. Let's talk about that. Yeah,
I could tell you about a knife product that we did many years ago, and it was a set of coloured knives. I can't remember exactly what the USP of them was, but it's going back many years. But anyway, we found this chef who he claimed to be a celebrity. We were looking for a celebrity chef, a cheap one ideally, but apparently this guy he came from sort of Suffolk or Norfolk or something like that, and he said he often did bits on the just quick bits on the TV. He was their go-to celebrity chef. So he came for the he came for basically he got the job. Came to the day one of the shoot. It's a 5-camera shoot in the studio, full kitchen set, and we're all ready to go. You okay? Yep, I'm absolutely fine. Everything's fantastic. Okay, so in 3, 2, 1, and action. He completely froze. Didn't know what day of the week it was. It's as if he was an absolute rabbit in the headlights. He really was. And then, just to make things even more juicy, We finally sort of got a bit of confidence into him. He started doing it, and then he chopped the end of his finger off.
Somehow I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
I know.
I wasn't sure it was going to be one. Or
But
more,
my only question was, which colour of knife did he use to cut his finger off?
Sadly, it wasn't the red one to cover it up. But so that was a complete disaster.
Okay, on a perhaps bit more boring but very practical level, how the hell, like, did you just shut down and have to come back and do it next week? Because we did a shoot for Duracell a couple of years ago, and the whole thing was from the point of view of a toddler. And we had, obviously booked a toddler to come along with a parent, and it was a friend of someone that worked for us, and, it was all like, all that kind of... There was a lot of chat beforehand, the toddler had picked out which toy she was going to get as her payment for it, everything was cool. And then the guys were setting up, I was coming to the set a little bit late, and by the time I got there, the toddler was upstairs, refusing to speak to anyone, having huge fits, but demanding the toy, and just refused to do anything. By total luck, really, our DOP, who's a good friend of ours, his daughter, who's not quite a toddler, she was a little bit, I think she was 5 at the time, but it was a school holiday. She was round the corner from where we were shooting. She came round and saved the day. But I still don't know what we would have done if we didn't have that option. So how did it work out for you?
Well, we never work with children and animals. I mean, it's a well
or chefs by the sounds of it.
Or chefs, yeah, no, exactly. Well, no, I think in the end we just had to shut it down. There was nothing else that we could do, and I think we ended up in actually shooting it in an actual restaurant in the middle of London somewhere with the chef. Who actually owned the restaurant, so that it all worked out all right. And we used to use a guy, a celebrity chef called Tony Tobin, who was on Ready Steady Cook and that sort of thing, and he came in the end and saved the day for us. He was brilliant. That was a bad one, not only for us but for the chef as well.
I did promise I'd ask you before, and I hadn't yet, but it might go with this. Have you ever done one where someone cuts through a shoe or a can with a knife?
I have worked with not cutting through a can, and this is the strangest demonstration that I've ever known. At JML, we did it was the classic pen set. Right, so it's a set of pens. It comes with an ink pen, a fountain pen, and all these different sort of ball pens and that sort of thing. But one of the main demos on it, and this was an American film, it's not something that we shot, was they got the fountain pen like this, and they got a Coke can like this, and then they stabbed the Coke can with it, and then took it out and started writing the most beautiful calligraphy, really fine sort of handwriting and that sort of thing, just to prove that the titanium nib or whatever it was on the end of this pen could withstand almost any anything that you threw at it, including stabbing a can. I don't think that would be allowed on the TV these days, but we live in a different world.
Based on some of the guidance we had on that Matt Sato project about an actual kitchen knife, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
the all-time favourite of mine, which obviously is the classic, is the guy in America with the big water tank who slaps the bit of tape on or whatever that plugs the leak and stops the water coming out. Can you get a better demonstration than that? I mean, I suppose the Solvite guy, I know that was a regular advert, but you know, glued to stuff. Those couple of things always stick in the mind, don't they? Yeah,
no, they are brilliant. And the Solvite guy, I mean, it's an expensive idea, but it's actually a very simple idea, isn't it? I mean, quite often the best ideas are the simple ones. I mean, whether you believe that was really done with Solvite or not, I don't know. But it's a very simple idea, isn't it?
You mean it might not have been?
I couldn't possibly comment. But
definitely would have asked for a few, safety nails.
Definitely, yeah. I'm sure that the guy for the insurance company would definitely have been there looking over that one. So it's all fun and games, really.
Well, that's why we're in this job, isn't it, Simon? Fun and games.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Every day is different. That's one of the things.
That is what they say, but it is true. Well, that's been brilliant. Really enjoyed that, and I'm sure obviously we on this podcast talk about all types of creativity. We've never done a big deep dive into this particular area before, and I think it's going to be interesting to a lot of people because it's it's the sort of thing that even though we're involved in making this content, it is still quite a niche, isn't it? But obviously, as we know, it's a very successful niche, and I think there probably is still a perception that it's old-fashioned or American or whatever, and I genuinely hope that our conversation for the last hour might put some of that to bed.
Well, me too. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, every marketer could learn something from teleshopping. I'm not saying that we're the be all and end all, but we have principles that that have proved to be really, really, really effective over many, many years. No matter what the format, whether it's long form or short form, you could do a lot worse than actually watch a really good teleshopping ad with a critical eye and actually work out what are they doing, how are they doing that. If you're do not regular marketing, because that's just rude, isn't it? But if you work in a different sphere, to actually work out what's going on there, I think that that a lot of people could definitely take something out of teleshopping.
You've mentioned maybe not general marketers, but to some degree, a trend that I see is content that has been made clearly for online. By which I mean, I see this a lot with clothing brands who I've never heard of, but I'll be fed an ad through an app on my TV. So, like, let's say I'm watching YouTube on the TV, and I'll get the advert, but it's clearly made for online. And this is my supposition here. I will preface that, but to me, it feels like it's a non-sales type advert. It's like, we're of a generation that doesn't want to force people to buy things, so we're just going to present what this is and let you make your mind up. But what that seems to have boiled down to in some cases is there is no voiceover, there is no hook, there is no reason, there's no explanation even. It's just, I think this is a clothing brand or what, and obviously that's an extreme version of what I'm talking about, but that does seem to be a trend which I've seen over the last 3-4 years in particular. And I do think it is probably a case of, people who are planning digital campaigns, doing a little bit of TV or VOD, and just going, well, I've got that asset, so I'll move it across. But everything we've talked about here, of course, this is a very specific format, but it has to be tailored. Obviously, this has to be tailored for the right platform, because otherwise, frankly, you're spending your money to not really say anything, and that's probably the cardinal sin of advertising, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I never write any infomercial to be forceful. And to really, I'm not begging for a sale or demanding a sale in any way. I'm presenting, I'm offering reasons why this is going to be a really good product for you, and how it's going to change your life, and how it's going to save you time, effort, and money. What an amazing deal we've got today. Don't dilly dally, don't miss out. All these principles that we use. Also the principle of using a testimonial, which is something that we do, in a big way in teleshopping. Do
you mean Amazon, social proof?
Social proof, yeah, exactly, yeah. We've been doing this for years and years and years, because the viewer likes to hear, or the potential customer likes to hear, what other people think of the product and what their experience is of it. Amazon built a business on that. So these are really, really, really important, really, really important things. A soft sell just goes against every fibre of my being. But as I say, teleshopping is not ramming things down people's throat. It also has to be entertaining. As I say, otherwise people just, there's a million and one other things that people could be watching. They could just flick away. Is that right? I don't
Close
know
enough, yeah.
Is that right? They could turn off, really go and watch something else, really easily. So,
by the way, I did that for social proof, because our mutual acquaintance Carl gets very hot under the collar. He's like, social proof. He's like, it's testimonials. We've been doing it for years.
Well, exactly. Yeah. We Carl, much like myself, is a bit old school. We like to, we know how we go about things. We've been doing it for years. We do it the correct way. We do it the right way. We know that it works. And so social proof is what I say to that.
Well, for anyone that was paying close attention, they might notice that very cleverly and in a meta style, we have attempted to end this 3 times, but we've gone, but that's not all. That's
Yeah,
still not
yeah,
all,
yeah.
effectively. But that is all now.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Simon.
Yeah, really appreciate
Cheers.
it. Great to talk to you, and we'll be talking again very soon, I'm sure.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much for having me, lads. It's been fun. Cheers.
Thanks, Simon. Cheers.